Here's our agenda for today. We are going to talk about a headline of the day, as we usually do, and something is especially unique about today's headline of the day, where it was suggested by a student, which is awesome. And I would love nothing more than if many of our headlines of the day come from you guys. So if something catches your attention and you feel like it's significant to discuss as a class because it connects to politics and government, let me know and we can work it into our morning headline of the day. Then we're going to talk about how to locate targets for civic action, and I'll show you a few things. And it was nice to see from your survey results, many of you are interested in contacting the mayor, but perhaps other members of city council as well, because they are closest to you and often most responsive to you. It's probably more likely that you'll get a response back and you'll get the help of a city council member than the mayor. But by all means, if you want to contact the mayor, go for it. You can do that. And then we're going to do some civic action project planning as well. So that's what we have in store for the day. So let's talk about our headline of the day, which is awesome, right? Because it came from one of you. Yesterday we looked at a Supreme Court case and we talked about how the Supreme Court intervened in Governor Cuomo's decision to place restrictions on religious institutions, right? And the Supreme Court ruled in favor of the First Amendment as opposed to public health. And they threw out his executive order saying you can't have more than 10 people at a church or a mosque or a synagogue in a red zone. They threw that out. They said it was a violation of freedom of religion. And that's not really that surprising because we said that the court now leans conservative, 5-4, after the death of Ruth Bader Ginsburg and the appointment of Amy Coney Barrett. And so perhaps maybe the effect of the court will also affect what will take place around this new issue. So if you look at the headline, it says the Supreme Court takes up Trump's plan to exclude unauthorized immigrants in redistricting. The administration's efforts, which are subject to practical hurdles, would upset a constitutional consensus and could shift political power from Democratic states to Republican ones. The Supreme Court will hear oral arguments on Monday, so that was yesterday, surrounding the Trump administration's attempt to exclude undocumented immigrants from the census count to use in the apportionment of the House. That's referring to the House of Representatives. So let's do a little review, right? We have three branches of government, right? We have the executive branch, we have the legislative branch, and we have the judicial branch. And the legislative branch is made up of two houses, right? What are the names of the two houses of our legislature, and how are they different? What are the two parts of Congress called? And how are they different from one another? So those are political parties, Daniela. That's okay. But if we're talking about like the actual physical buildings of Congress, there's the blank and the blank. The Senate and the House of Representatives. Very good. And how are they different from one another? How is representation determined in the Senate? How is representation determined in the House? Which one do little states like, and which one do big states like? Why is that? So we said in the Senate, you might remember there's 100 senators, and each state has two. Little states like the House of Representatives, right? Or actually, no. Little states like the Senate because they have as much power as big states. Each state has two, regardless of size. big states like the House of Representatives because they have more power because power is determined by population, right? And this calls into question, how do you determine the population of a state, right? Um, and Trump says in some cases you should only count citizens, not everyone that resides there, which is typically how it's been done for years. But if you look at the Constitution, right, we said the Constitution's short. It doesn't go into many details on things. It says there should be a census and you should count the people, but it doesn't necessarily say who are you counting. When you say you should count the people every 10 years, are you counting everyone or are you just counting citizens? And so, again, this would be something that the Supreme Court would weigh in on. And it's not just about seats in government, it's also about money, like many things. So every 10 years we have a census, and we just had one, and perhaps you heard about them, and hopefully you didn't shoo away the census worker and you reported it because your neighborhood will get money for all sorts of things depending on how many people live there. And they only know if you self-report, if you fill out the census. So $1.5 trillion is on the line. That's determined by counting people in the census. And also power in government, power in the House of Representatives. So let me read a little bit more. I'll ask you a few more questions afterwards. So it says, current estimates suggest that one state is home to more than 2.2 million illegal aliens, constituting more than 6% of the state's entire population. The memo said, apparently referring to California. Including these illegal aliens in the population of the state for the purpose of apportionment would result in the allocation of 2 to 3 more congressional seats than would otherwise be allocated. So again, California has more members of the House because they have a larger population, and some of those people are undocumented. Removing undocumented immigrants from the count would most likely have the effect of shifting seats to states that are older, whiter, and typically more Republican. Okay? So based upon different political, let's go back to our political parties, right? Danielle identified our political parties. What do liberals or Democrats want, and what do Republicans or conservatives want in regards to how the Supreme Court is going to decide this case? What type of ruling do the Democrats or liberals want, and what type of ruling do the Republicans or conservatives want? Liberals want the census to count blank. Conservatives want the census to count blank. Fill in the blanks. You guys got this, and you know the answer. You guys got this, and you know the answer. Come on. Do the liberals want the census to count everyone or just citizens? Do the conservatives want the census to count everyone or just citizens? You can look back in the text. Or just make a prediction based upon your understanding of the different political ideologies. Conservatives just want. So, do conservatives want the census to count all people or just citizens, Daniela? Does the census want Do conservatives want the census to count everyone or just citizens in the census? What do we think? So if we look over here, so these efforts in terms of just counting citizens could shift power from the Democrats to the Republicans. And Republicans are the conservatives, right? So conservatives want to count just citizens. Democrats want to count everyone because, again, in democratic states, there tend to be more non citizens, and that would give them more power. Republican states tend to have um, a larger number of citizens, right? And that would give them more power, right? And again, what we talked about in the last ruling was it was a 5-4 split. All the conservatives voted to throw out. They all the conservatives voted in favor of freedom of religion. All the liberals voted in favor of public health. And so perhaps this will be a similar split. And right, the makeup of the court, the fact that there's another conservative on the court, could have a lot of a huge effect on the results of this case and other cases in the future as well. So that's our headline of the day. So there's such a lag. I don't know. Right now, I still see the old. There we go. How are you feeling today, people? What is your mood and how are you feeling? I'm feeling pretty good. I got a new tea with me today. It's called Root Mountain. Maybe you're feeling good too. Let me know, people. What's your energy like? What's your pleasantness like? Are you excited to do some activism? Daniela's feeling calm. That's good. And participatory. Thank you, Daniela. I really appreciate your participation. Savannah needs a caffeinated beverage. Upbeat. Right on. Relaxed. That's good to hear, Cynthia. Yay! Are we ready to do some activism? Let me pull something. Okay. Many of you have already completed our planning sheet, which is nice to see. And if you didn't, that's fine, but you should do this part by today to give your classmates, to give me a heads up in terms of what type of project you want to do. Do you want to send an email? Do you want to call someone? Do you want to do a social media campaign? Do you want to do an infographic? Some people last class they had a question about an infographic. They're like, what's an infographic? And there's exemplars in the toolkit, but like I'm like, oh, just think back to what I just showed you here in terms of the census. This is a this is an infographic as well, right? Showing you this, showing you you could do something about lead testing results and um, water quality and water safety, right, in our city, something like that. And you can share that with elected officials or you can share that on social media, right? That would be an infographic. So let's go back to this project planning sheet, right? Um, oh, so I put this up. And again, if you did not get your own lead test results, I would strongly recommend that you start here. And there's the contact information, the deputy commissioner of our city's water supply. You can reach out to him. You can reach out to the lead test unit. You can tell them, hey, this is our project. Like our whole class is testing their water at home. We had elevated lead levels at our school. You can share some information with that, and you can also ask them like what's going on with your own individual results if you didn't get that as well. So that would be like a target for your activism as well. Um, this was something that I shared that I gave you access to as well. So for those of you who have already filled out the survey, I was taking a look at some of your responses to see what you were thinking about doing for your project. And so Zanaya wrote something that stood out to me. She had a question. And this is a great question. She said, will this project actually help with the problem? And so I want to put something into perspective. I want to talk to you about what were our projects last year. And so last year, my first period class wanted to elevate authentic learning by kind of doing away with Regents exams. And my second period class wanted to get rid of this procedure called 50A, which protected NYPD officers from like sharing their misconduct records to try to reduce police brutality. And another one of my classes, um, they wanted to do something similar to criminal justice reform. They wanted the NYPD to stop arresting street vendors. And at the end of the year, we look back at these projects and our activism, and all these things actually happened. Regents exams were canceled, 50A was thrown out, and you can now search police misconduct records. That's now publicly available. And the NYPD stopped arresting churro ladies and street vendors. And so these things do have effect. Now it's not just like on our own, but our efforts added to the efforts of other people and targeted to the right individuals do have major effects. Um, and we've worked with state legislatures to to write. We wrote a bill one year to require New York State to mandate that pharmacy techs are certified, and so that's something that's we're working on. And actually, CVS agreed that they were going to increase the number of pharmacy techs per pharmacist, and so we have been able to accomplish great things, and we are already accomplishing a lot with the work that we've done so far. So your efforts matter. They matter. They're going to be celebrated. We're going to share what we're doing at Civics Day, and they will make a difference. Let me see. Was there anything else that stood out? When is the project due? So we're working on it all this week, and it will be due the following week. Okay. And the rubric will be shared with you. But as long as you have these components, right? You have someone specific that you're targeting, you have something specific that you're making, you're following the format of the toolkit which I gave you, you're good. And if you have any other questions or you want to think through something, we can work on that together. Okay? So I am going to let you get to work again. Step 1, if you haven't already done so, is finish the planning survey. Oh, there was one more thing I want to show you. Sorry. So one thing that I saw in terms of people that you were contacting, so some of you reported that you wanted to contact the mayor, which is completely fine, but sometimes it's helpful to contact somebody that's a little bit closer to you as a constituent. Who's a little bit more approachable. And many of these individuals come to Civics Day, and I'm speaking about members of City Council. So one thing I wanted to show you. Oh, here's my tab. So I was doing this first period. I was showing them who my City Council member is. So you can just Google like New York City City Council, and you can look at this map to try to find out where you are and what district you fall into. Or you can put your address in, and it makes it very, very easy to do, and you can find out who your city council member is. And this is also important because they're up for re-election next year, next election cycle. People will have the option to vote for a new city council member. And you can find their information. You can also find their email address right here. But again, if you want this person to be responsive to you, you need to make sure that you contact your city council member. So if you ask another city council member, the first thing they're going to say is, what district do you live in? Do I represent you? And if not, they're going to send you in the direction of your city council member. So it's important to know who represents you, and that would be a person that you would reach out to, because they have the power, again, to write legislation on a local level. So if we feel strongly that there should be more filtered water fountains in schools, or there should be more easily accessible lead testing. If you didn't get your results and stuff, you can tell them. If you think that the city should have to share all this information by neighborhood, so you can get a sense of if other people in your neighborhood who have tested their water at home, if lead is a big problem in your neighborhood, and the city should share this information by zip code, so you get an idea if this is a problem in your locality. That's something that you can ask for as well. So maybe we can work on some legislation in that direction, but we need the help of our elected officials. And so this is a way to look up and find out who represents you, and you can do outreach to them. So that's the last thing I want to share with you. I'll be around for questions, and I'm looking forward to working on our project contributions together.